Hey guys, what is up and welcome to a new League of Legends video. So we're at patch 6.11 or 6.11 or whatever you want to call it, and there have been a lot of changes, whether it's to the game in general or for top lane or mid lane. And I did not do a top 5 mid laners for the previous patch, so for this one, things are going to be completely different. The recent buffs and nerfs and overall just things that have changed have made the meta for mid lane feel like it completely switched. So almost every single champion I'll be talking about in today's list is going to be one that you probably haven't heard me talk about for a very long time in a top 5 list. But right before we jump into things, this video is going to be made in collaboration with Pro Guides. They have been a great help for me in many ways, so I highly recommend at least checking them out. There's a free trial link down below, and they have a cool new feature where you can chat to many high and low players almost at any time you want, asking them almost any question. So worth checking out if you haven't. But with all that stuff out of the way guys, let's move into the top 5 list, and starting off in the number 5 spot is Aurelion Sol. So you guys already know that in the number 5 spot, I like to give my personal favorite pick. Whether or not the stats agree with me, I always like to put a champion that I just think is personally very strong right now in the number 5 spot, and for this list we'll be talking about the Sol. Now granted, his stats actually aren't all that bad, and there's a lot of Aurelion Sol one-trick ponies in the high elo Korean ladder, and the reason for that is simple: he is strong. The current meta of League of Legends in general, but especially mid lane and top lane, is playing tanky champions that can build maybe something like a Rod of Ages, a Rallies, Abyssal Scepter, and things like that, be very tanky and have a lot of consistent annoying damage. That is just what's good right now. That is what is strong, and to me Aurelion Sol is one of the best champions when it comes to that. All you want to do when you play him is simply activate your W while maxing it first in the laning phase, push in the lane as fast as possible, and then you either roam to other lanes, back to base, buy, and then use your teleport or your E ability to go back to lane. This is not only very effective with farming, but you also make it very annoying for your enemy to try and CS under tower since you're always pushing it in. But the main thing that I like Aurelion Sol for is because he scales very well. I mean, his W is going to be doing an insane amount of damage late game, but once you get the Rod of Ages and Rallies, not only are you tanky, but your W always applying the slow in a team fight, especially when it's active, is going to be one of the most annoying things for the enemy to play against. You'll have so much consistent damage coming out, you have your AoE Q stun, your ultimate pushes back anyone that finally gets onto you. He's my personal go-to champion right now for a lot of mid lane matchups. I enjoy playing him, I think he's very strong, and I highly recommend at least trying him out. The only bad thing about him is the fact that he is a little bit awkward to play at first if you're not used to him, so he will take a few games to truly understand. But if you do try him out and listen to my advice, then here are the recommended items, runes, and masteries when playing the Sol. Now you want the Storm Raider Surge because he's all about proccing it with his W, getting the move speed, and consistently staying in range properly. And Rod of Ages Rallies are without question a core. Everything else is quite standard. But let us move our way down to the number 4 spot where I'll be talking about Fizz. So now usually when you play Fizz mid lane, you are going to be playing AP Fizz, not Triforce Fizz, not Gauntlet Fizz. You want to leave that for the top lane. Mid lane AP Fizz is very strong and it works. Now the thing that's changed about this and that I personally think is just so much better is instead of running Ignite, you run Teleport. Fizz is obviously known to have not the best laning phase up until level 6, but once he hits that level 6, the damage he can do and the all-in potential he has, it's suddenly almost like you're playing another champion. So the idea is using Teleport to help you get past the first few levels where you are going to be struggling. You get to your level 6, you start all-inning people, you start building your core items, you start scaling, and all in all you just become Fizz. You one-shot people, you do an insane amount of damage, you are the definition of Tiltosaurus Rex. He's just overall a very good champion that snowballs the game tremendously. He has the percent damage from his W to kill all the tanky champions that you have to face lately. You can get Morel and Omicron on him, which will synergize with his W beautifully, and you can counter people like Swain, people like Vladimir. All in all, Fizz kind of randomly is just suddenly very good in the mid lane. I mean, everything else just kind of fits together, and Fizz is Fizz. So here are my recommended runes for Fizz. For the most part, you should already know this because, you know, Thunderlords is fantastic. You want to run a standard page for the mid lane as well for runes and masteries. And the items are somewhat situational, but for the most part, things like Lichbane, maybe Abyssal Scepter, Zhonya's, Rabadons, and Morellos if you're facing healing champions are all absolutely wonderful. But now the number 3 spot is going to be holding the champion by the name of Viktor. Here's the champion that always goes up and down. One time he's extremely overpowered, another time he's extremely underpowered and never seen. But ever since the mid-season update, I feel like Viktor has slowly been re-emerging. You know, people have been trying him out here and there, and very slowly they have been realizing, you know what, Victor is actually a very good champion. Also because people have started building Rylai's Crystal Scepter on him, realizing the great synergy it has on his kit overall with his E ability and his ultimate. He does an insane amount of damage with his E now, his ultimate every time it procs is crazy damage as well. And in my opinion, he probably has the best wave clear of any mid laner at the very moment. I mean, his E ability, if you haven't seen it yet or if you haven't tried it, you just gotta see it to believe it. His burst potential is still 100% there. He has a lot of teamfight presence with his W, his E, and Rylai's, plus his ultimate doing more damage I believe now over the course of its full duration. He's just a good champion. I mean, again, the main reason I like him so much is because his new E ability is just wonderful. If you hit both parts of it, the damage is nuts. With Rylai's, it makes it so much easier. Overall, a solid champion, does a lot for his team, offers a lot as well, and you should definitely play him. And if you do decide to play him, then here are my recommended items, runes, and masteries. Thunderlords, of course, being just absolutely core on many mid laners at the moment, but other than that, Abyssal Scepter is great because you are somewhat of a mid-range mage. Rylai's Crystal Scepter, like I said, is an absolute must now. It's just so good on him. But other than that, it should be quite straightforward. But moving into the number 2 spot is a champion I did not expect to see, but when you really think about it, it makes sense. Anivia. So whenever I do make these top 5 lists, I always make it a combination of my personal opinion, so something like Aurelion Sol, and a mix of statistics that I see, champions that I just consistently see across the board in every single region do well. And Anivia, to my surprise, was one of those champions. I mean, she's just consistently a strong one in every single region, and when you really think about it, I mean, it makes sense. Because like I said, the meta is all about mid lane champions right now that can do consistent damage with a bit of burst, that build either Rylai's, Rod of Ages, and just tanky items in general. And that's exactly what Anivia does. I mean, she has consistent damage with her ultimate, she has a burst with her E, CC with her Q ability, she's tanky because of the items that she builds. It's like she perfectly fits the meta. So based on stats and just from seeing her a little bit more often here and there, Anivia is taking the number 2 spot, and I won't be surprised if she becomes only even more popular. Definitely a very strong champion that I recommend you watch out for, or on the other hand, you should start playing. But making our way to the number 1 spot without any surprise is going to be probably one of the strongest champions in the current meta and patch, Swain. This guy has a really good win ratio, whether it's top lane, whether it's mid lane, across all 3 regions, North America, EU West, and Korea. He's absolutely demolishing FaZe, but I mean, honestly, you shouldn't even be seeing him in your games because he should be permabanned. But Swain is the definition of what the current meta is. I almost want to say that he created this meta. I mean, he builds tanky items, he has a lot of CC in his kit, whether it's roots from his W, slows from his Q ability, or if you get Rylai's, just constant slows from everything he does. He has a really good and solid heal from his ultimate. He's very tanky. He has annoying consistent damage coming out. He literally is the meta. This is just not a champion you want to face, especially if he gets ahead. Believe me when I say, no matter how many ignites you have, no matter how many executioners calling or whatever you have, he is not easy to take down, and you do not want him ahead unless he's on your team. Again, I want to say this one more time, but in my honest, truthful opinion, he is the meta. He defined the meta. You can even over-exaggerate it to the point where you'll call him the god of League of Legends at the moment because of the creation of the meta he just did. Swain is strong, ban him, play him, do not have him on the enemy team. That's really all you have to know. But something else you have to know, if you do happen to somehow magically use some witchcraft to get him on your team and you're the one playing him, then here's the build you want to go with him. You want to go either the safe path, which is Deathfire Touch, or if you want to have a bit more lane dominance, you go for the Thunderlords. But usually I recommend Deathfire. In terms of items, I mean, it shouldn't be a surprise. Rod of Ages is obviously fantastic, Rylai's Crystal Scepter, Spirit Visage, Abyssal Scepter, Zhonya's Hourglass, maybe even a Death Cap or a Void Staff. It really just comes down to what you're facing and how ahead you are, but tanky AP items are just a must. But right before we end off this video, guys, there are a few honorable mentions I just have to talk about. The first one is going to be Azir. Now, Azir is one of my personal favorite champions in League of Legends, and I still play him right now because I like him. I think he's strong. I think he's a great champion, even though he just got nerfed. But the reason I didn't put him in the top 5 list is because he's a hard champion to recommend. I mean, he's not easy to play. He's just a champion you only see in higher elo, and at the moment, especially since he got nerfed, and especially since the meta is all about these Swain type champions that just don't die and do consistent damage, he's not very easy to make him work. But if you have invested enough time into Azir, he's still a fantastic champion, and I personally still play him. The next honorable champion I want to mention is vel'koz, another champion I really wanted to put in the top 5 list, but I just couldn't find a place for him. I just felt like there were other 5 champions I thought were better and just had to take the spot. But when you really think about the meta and how everyone is a tanky champion building MR or armor or whatever, his passive sounds just absolutely amazing, and he just sounds like a pretty good champion in the current meta as well. But for the sake of just having better champions to choose from, I decided to put him in the honorable mentions instead. And the final one I want to talk about in the honorable mentions section is Malzahar, also a strong champion, perfect for the meta. He builds tanky AP, he builds Rylai's Rod of Ages, he has a % damage ultimate. I mean, he just kind of works, but again, I haven't seen him enough to the point where I can say he's flat out just really strong, and I wanted to put some light on some other champions as well, but Malzahar of the 3 honorable mentions has to be the closest one that I wanted to put in the top 5 list, so you can almost consider him number 5.5. But other than that, guys, I mean, there you have it, my top 5 best mid laners for patch 6.11 or patch 6.11 or whatever you want to call it. If you did enjoy this video, definitely hit that like button to let me know, guys. Share this with your friends, subscribe if you haven't, make sure to check out my other videos as well, and big shout outs to Pro Guys for the editing. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace.